The emergency klaxons screamed through the corridors of the Zephyrian research vessel. Peaceful dawn as Captain Velinara fought to maintain control. The bridge shook violently, throwing his crew against their stations as sparks cascaded from overloaded circuits like deadly rain. "Quantum drive containment breach in progress," shouted his chief engineer, her 6 delicate arms frantically working multiple control panels at once. The Zephyrians were a graceful species, evolved on a world of gentle breezes and perpetual twilight. Their bodies designed for precision work rather than crisis management. Velinara's pale blue skin had turned an alarming shade of silver, Zephyrian equivalent of going white with fear. In his 200 years of peaceful exploration, nothing had prepared him for this moment. The quantum drive, humanity's most dangerous technology that other species had barely begun to understand, was tearing itself apart. "Life support is failing, Captain," reported Science Officer Kelmera, her trembling appendages dancing over the emergency controls like a pianist playing a funeral dirge. The air recyclers were already struggling, and the artificial gravity kept fluctuating, making everyone feel sick. "We have perhaps 6 rotations before the atmosphere becomes toxic. The quantum breach is poisoning our air supply." The bridge fell silent except for the groaning of stressed metal. 6 rotations meant 18 Earth hours Velinara had explored. The peaceful sectors of the galaxy his entire life, mapping nebulae and cataloging harmless space phenomena. His ship carried no weapons, no armor, just scientific instruments and a crew of researchers who had never faced real danger. "Send the distress beacon," Velinara ordered, his voice heavy with resignation. "Full power, all allied frequencies." Emergency beacon activated with a soft chime that seemed mockingly cheerful given their situation. The signal would travel faster than light through subspace, reaching their allies across the galaxy. The gentle Corvani healers with their floating medical cities would want to help, but they were a peaceful species with slow, methodical ships. The wise Thalan philosophers might offer guidance, but their vessels were designed for contemplation, not emergency response. "Beacon active, Captain," Kelmara reported. "Signal strength at maximum. The Corvani should receive it in 4 rotations, the Thalan in 5. Too late. It would all be dead by then." Meanwhile, light years away on a small blue planet that most galactic civilizations would classify as a death world, Communications Officer Kim Taeho was having what he thought would be another boring night shift. The Sol Space Command Center hummed quietly around him, banks of computers monitoring the endless void for any sign of intelligent life. Taeho was 28, a former satellite communications specialist who had volunteered for humanity's Deep Space Monitoring Program. Most nights, he listened to cosmic background radiation, solar flares, and the occasional signal from human colonies. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, and he was considering whether to brew another pot when his headset exploded with noise. At first, he thought it was interference. But as the translation algorithms kicked in, parsing the mathematical concepts that form the basis of all communication, Taeho realized he was hearing something impossible. Someone was screaming for help in a language that had never been spoken. On Earth, the voice was alien, definitely not human, filled with desperation that transcended species barriers. Mathematical coordinates flooded his screen, along with technical specifications for technologies that shouldn't exist. Quantum drives, subspace communicators, artificial gravity generators, concepts that human scientists had only theorized about. "Commander Park," Taeho called out, his voice cracking with excitement and fear. "You need to hear this right now." Commander Park Jin-woo had been reviewing personnel files in his office when Taeho's urgent call came through. Park was a veteran of humanity's early space exploration efforts, a man who had spent decades preparing for this exact moment, first contact with alien intelligence, but he had always imagined it would be a carefully planned diplomatic exchange. Not a desperate cry for help. He rushed to Taeho's station, his experienced eyes taking in the scrolling data. The translation software was working overtime, converting alien concepts into human language. Hull breach, life support failure, quantum containment collapse. Someone was dying out there, and they were begging for rescue. "My God," Park whispered, reading the coordinates. They're in the Kepler sector, maybe 40 light-years from here. Sir, Tejo said quietly, his hands shaking as he adjusted the receivers. I don't think this message was meant for us. Look at the frequency bands they're using. This is a military-grade emergency channel, but it's not broadcasting on any wavelength we use. They're calling for someone specific. Park studied the star charts, his mind racing. The signal was coming from a region of space no human had ever explored, a dangerous area filled with asteroid fields and unstable stellar phenomena. If aliens were out there, they had chosen one of the most hazardous places in the local galaxy to conduct their research. But that didn't matter now. Someone was going to die if nobody helped them. Get me Admiral Kim on the secure channel, Park ordered, and prep the Iron Mountain for immediate emergency launch. I don't care if that message wasn't meant for us. We're going to answer it anyway. The Sol Space Command Center burst into activity as humanity prepared for its first real test as a galactic species. They had no idea what they were flying into, but they were going anyway. It was the most human thing they could do. The massive hangar doors of Sol Space Command slid open with a thunderous roar, revealing the Iron Mountain in all its brutal glory. Unlike the sleek, elegant vessels that most galactic civilizations preferred, this ship looked like it had been built to survive a war. Its hull was thick and scarred from countless rescue missions. Covered in ablative armor that could withstand asteroid impacts and solar flares, Captain Lee So-young stood on the bridge. Her reflection multiplied in the reinforced viewports that could resist pressures that would crush normal glass. At 35, she had already led more dangerous space rescues than most captains attempted in a lifetime. Her crew called her Iron Lee behind her back, not as an insult, but with genuine respect. Mission briefing in 30 seconds, she announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had pulled crews out of black holes and solar storms. The bridge crew assembled around the holographic display table, their faces grim but determined. Listen up, people, Lee began, manipulating the star chart with practiced gestures. We have an alien vessel in distress, and yes, you heard that right. First contact is happening whether we're ready or not. The ship is designated Peaceful Dawn, Zephyrian Registry, whatever that means. The hologram showed the Kepler 442 system, a notorious graveyard of shattered asteroids and gravitational anomalies. Most human ships avoided the area entirely, but rescue vessels like the Iron Mountain were built differently. The alien vessel is drifting toward the asteroid field, Lee continued. If we don't reach them in 18 hours, the gravitational pull will tear their ship apart like tissue paper. Current intel suggests they're a peaceful research vessel, with no military capabilities. Navigation Officer Yoon Ha-jin, a wiry man with the reflexes of a fighter pilot, studied the course projections. His fingers danced over the navigation console, calculating jump vectors and fuel consumption rates. Captain, we'll need to push the fusion engines beyond safety limits to reach them in time. We're talking about sustained acceleration of 12 Gs for 6 hours straight. The G-forces alone could kill a normal crew. The bridge fell silent. 12 Gs meant that every crew member would weigh 12 times their normal body weight. Internal organs would shift, blood would pool, and consciousness would become a struggle. Most galactic species would die within minutes under such stress. Good thing we're not normal, replied Chief Engineer Choi Min-ho with a grim smile, securing his diagnostic equipment to the reinforced workstations. At 42, Min-ho had survived 3 black hole rescue missions and a solar flare evacuation that had cooked lesser ships like eggs. The Iron Mountain was built for this kind of punishment. Hell, we've done worse rescuing mining crews from Jupiter's radiation belt. Weapons specialist Bang Hyun-woo checked his equipment, even though they weren't expecting combat. Captain, should we be worried about hostile contact? First alien species we meet and we're flying blind into their territory? We'll deal with that when it happens, Lee replied. Right now, someone's dying out there and they called for help. Doesn't matter if they meant to call us or not. Medical officer Dr. Lim De-jin was already preparing her trauma bay for alien physiology. I've got the medical scanners calibrated for unknown biology. Whatever these Zephyrians are, I'll keep them alive long enough to get them home. The Asterisk Iron Mountain Asterix engines roared to life, their fusion cores burning hotter than the surface of most stars. The ship lifted from its berth with the grace of a controlled explosion. accelerating toward the edge of the solar system at speeds that would have amazed the first astronauts. Meanwhile, light years away, aboard the dying Peaceful Dawn, Captain Velanara grew increasingly desperate. His elegant ship, designed for peaceful exploration of gentle cosmic phenomena, groaned under the stress of its failing systems. The Zephyrians had never built vessels to survive real disasters because their corner of the galaxy was civilized, safe, predictable. Hull integrity down to 40%, reported his engineering officer, her normally melodious voice strained with fear. The quantum drive containment field is completely gone, preventing atmosphere through 17 microfractures. Ships shuddered as another asteroid fragment bounced off their failing shields. Each impact sent vibrations through the hull that made the Zephyrians' sensitive inner ears ring with pain. They were a species evolved for precision and delicacy, not brutal survival. "Any response from the Corvani?" Velanara asked, though he already knew the answer. The gentle healer ships would take days to reach them, moving slowly and carefully. As was their nature. "Negative, Captain. The Thalan philosophy vessels are even further out. At their current speed," a communications officer paused, unwilling to voice the obvious conclusion. "Captain Communications Officer Theron," suddenly whispered, her voice filled with a mixture of hope and terror, "I'm detecting an approaching vessel, high-energy signature, moving at incredible speed, but the energy pattern is unknown. It's not Corvani or Thalan. The power readings are off the charts." Velanara's blood ran cold, his pale blue skin shifting to the deep purple of fear. In a galaxy of peaceful civilizations, unknown ships usually meant pirates, slavers, or worse. The extinct Ravager clans had once terrorized this sector with vessels that showed similar energy signatures, massive, brutal ships designed for violence rather than exploration. "Distance and approach vector," he asked, his voice barely steady, "for lidars out and closing fast." "Captain, their acceleration curve is impossible. No known species can survive those kinds of G-forces, whatever's coming for us. It's not like anything in our databases." The Peaceful Dawn drifted helplessly as its crew watched the unknown vessel approach. They had sent out a distress call to their allies, but something else had answered instead. Something that flew through space like a weapon rather than a ship. Something that treated the deadly void between stars like a highway rather than an obstacle. Velanara could only pray that whatever was coming would show mercy to a crew of researchers who had never hurt anyone in their lives. In the distance, asteroids continued their deadly dance, waiting to crush anything foolish enough to enter their domain. The Asterisk. Iron Mountain Asterisk dropped out of hyperspace like a meteor entering atmosphere, its engines screaming as reality twisted. Around the massive vessel, Captain Lee Soyoung felt her stomach lurch as the ship's inertial dampeners struggled to compensate for the violent transition. Through the reinforced viewports, she saw a nightmare of spinning rock and twisted metal. The Kepler 442 asteroid field stretched endlessly in all directions. A graveyard of shattered planets that had been grinding themselves to dust for millions of years. Chunks of rock the size of city blocks tumbled through space, some glowing red-hot from recent collisions. In the middle of this cosmic demolition derby, a sleek alien vessel spun helplessly like a leaf in a hurricane. "Jesus Christ," whispered Pilot Oh Soo-jin, her knuckles white on the flight controls. "It's like flying through a blender." Scanning the target ship, reported sensor specialist Kang Ji-won, her fingers dancing over multiple displays as data flooded in. "Hull composition is some kind of crystalline matrix, beautiful but fragile. Hull integrity at 60% and falling fast. Captain, they have maybe 20 minutes before catastrophic failure." The alien ship was nothing like human vessels. Where the Iron Mountain was all armor plating and brutal functionality, Peaceful Dawn looked like a work of art. Its hull curved in elegant spirals. It's covered in what appeared to be decorative patterns that probably served some scientific purpose. It was clearly built by a species that had never needed to worry about their ships being shot at or rammed by asteroids, Captain. Lee gripped her command chair as a basketball-sized rock slammed into their forward shields, the impact sending vibrations. Through the deck, Pilot Oh Soo-jin, bring us alongside. Engineering, prepare the magnetic grapples. Captain Oh Soo-jin called over the groaning of stressed metal. The gravitational shear in here will crush any normal ship. We're talking about tidal forces that would liquefy most species. The alien ship is only holding together because it's spinning with the field rotation. More asteroids hammered against their shields, each impact lighting up the bridge with sparks and warning lights. The Iron Mountain had been built to survive the worst that space could throw at it, but even she had limits. Then it's lucky we're from Earth, Lee replied grimly, strapping herself tighter into her command chair. Execute the rescue maneuver. All hands, prepare for heavy acceleration. Chief Engineer Choi Minho's voice crackled over the intercom from the engine room. Captain, I'm pushing the fusion cores to 110%. Any higher, and we'll cook ourselves from the inside out. Do it, Lee ordered. Navigation, plot an intercept course. Weapons. I want you tracking every asteroid bigger than a garbage can. If anything threatens our hull integrity, vaporize it. The Iron Mountain dove into the asteroid field like a shark entering a feeding frenzy. Her reinforced hull, designed to withstand Earth's violent storms and seismic activity, rang like a bell as smaller rocks bounced off the armor plating. The ship's point defense lasers fired continuously, turning threatening asteroids into harmless dust clouds inside the ship. The crew endured crushing G-forces that would have killed most galactic species. Human bodies evolved on a world with crushing gravity and constant environmental threats could survive acceleration that would turn other aliens into paste. Even so, several crew members lost consciousness as the ship pulled maneuvers that violated every safety protocol in the book. Target vessel dead ahead, Kong G1 reported through gritted teeth, her vision tunneling from the G-forces. There, HULL just took another major impact. Captain, if we don't grab them in the next 5 minutes, there won't be anything left to rescue. The peaceful Dawn tumbled end over end, its elegant hull cracking like an eggshell under the constant bombardment. Through the debris field, Lee could see the alien ship's running lights, flickering as power systems failed one by one. I'll grapple. Systems online, reported Chief Engineer Choi. But Captain, we'll have to match their rotation exactly. One mistake, and we'll tear both ships apart. Right. Steady as she goes, Lee commanded, her voice calm despite the chaos around them. Years of impossible rescues had taught her that panic was the enemy of precision. Oh, Sujin, bring us in nice and slow. The pilot's hands moved over the controls with surgical precision, nudging the massive rescue vessel closer to its target. Asteroids the size of cars bounced off their hull like hailstones, but the Iron Mountain kept coming. With precision born of desperation and countless hours of training, they locked the magnetic grapples onto the alien vessel. Just as a massive asteroid fragment the size of a house shattered against the peaceful Dawn's failing shields, the impact would have been fatal, but the human ship's powerful tractor beams held the alien vessel steady. Got them, Choi shouted in triumph. Magnetic lock secure, tractor beam holding steady. Lee felt the ship shudder as the Iron Mountain engines fought against the asteroid field's gravitational pull. Slowly, incredibly, they began to drag the alien vessel free of the cosmic death trap, both ships spinning wildly through space as they escaped the grinding rocks. Inside the alien vessel, Captain Velanara stared in amazement through his cracked viewports at his rescuer's ship. The human vessel looked like it had been built for war rather than exploration, its hull scarred and pitted from countless battles with the universe itself. Whatever species had built it clearly came from a world where such brutal engineering was necessary for survival. Unknown vessel, he transmitted on all frequencies, his voice shaking with relief and disbelief. We are the Zephyrian exploration ship, Peaceful Dawn. We ... We cannot believe you survived that rescue. Our sensors show you endured forces that should have killed every living thing aboard your ship. Captain Lee's voice crackled back through the comm system, steady and reassuring despite the hell they had just flown through. This is Captain Lee So-young of the Earth vessel Iron Mountain. We're reading massive hull breaches on your ship. Hold tight. We're going to tow you to a safe distance and get repair teams over to you. Try to stay calm. You're safe now. Yes. The two ships limped away from the asteroid field. Velinara realized that his people's first contact with an unknown species had revealed something terrifying and wonderful. Somewhere in the galaxy, there was a world so dangerous that its children had become living weapons against the void itself. And somehow, impossibly, those weapons had chosen to save rather than destroy the docking clamps. Engaged with a satisfying thunk that echoed through both ships, Captain Lee watched the pressure readings equalize on her displays, knowing that in just moments, humanity would meet its first alien species face to face. The Iron Mountain-esque cargo bay had been hastily converted into a temporary meeting area, with portable life support units humming in the corners. Atmosphere compatible, reported environmental specialist Kim Dong-haen, checking his readings one final time. Their air is actually cleaner than ours. Lower oxygen content, but we can breathe it without suits. Lucky break. The massive airlock doors slid open with a hydraulic hiss, and the rescue team stepped through. Medical officer Dr. Nam Sung-min led the way, his emergency medical kit slung over his shoulder and a reassuring smile on his weathered face. Behind him came engineers Park Woo-jin and Yoon Mi-kyun, carrying repair equipment that looked impossibly heavy, but which they handled like it weighed nothing. The Zephyrians were waiting on the other side, and both species stopped dead at their first sight of each other. The aliens were beautiful in an otherworldly way. They stood about 6 feet tall, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the artificial light. Their bodies were slender and graceful, with 4 arms that moved like dancers' limbs and large, multifaceted eyes that reflected intelligence and gentleness. They looked like they had been designed by an artist rather than shaped by evolution's brutal trials. But when the Zephyrians saw the humans, they gasped in unison, their skin shifting to a deeper shade of blue that Dr. Name would later learn indicated shock and fear. The rescue team looked exactly like what they were. Survivors from a world that had spent millions of years trying to kill them. Even Dr. Nam, the gentlest member of the crew, stood with the unconscious confidence of a predator. His shoulders were broad from years of heavy gravity training, his hands scarred from countless emergency procedures, his eyes alert and constantly scanning for threats that might not even exist. ... Captain Velinara stammered, his forearms trembling as the universal translator struggled to find words for concepts that didn't exist in Zephyrian culture. You ... you come from? A death world. The translation software had to work overtime to convey the horror in his voice. In galactic standard terminology, a death world was a planet so hostile that it was considered uninhabitable by civilized species. Worlds with active volcanism, extreme weather patterns, dangerous wildlife, or unstable geological activity. The kind of places that peaceful species used as cautionary tales. Dr. Nam smiled reassuringly, though he didn't realize how his canine teeth made the expression look vaguely predatory to alien eyes. We prefer to call it home, he said gently, setting down his medical kit and pulling out a handheld scanner. Your people are suffering from severe stress trauma, completely understandable given what you've been through. May I examine you? I promise I won't hurt you. As the medical examination proceeded, cultural specialist Han Buara worked frantically to establish proper communication protocols. The herdable computer contained every Earth language and mathematical concept humanity had developed, and she was busy building bridges between human and alien thought patterns. Tell me about your world, she asked Captain Velinara, genuinely curious about the first alien civilization humanity had encountered. The Zephyrian captain's skin gradually returned to its normal pale blue as he realized the humans meant no harm. Zephyr Prime orbits a gentle red giant star, he explained, his voice growing more confident. Our weather patterns are stable and predictable. We have seasons, but they change slowly over periods you would measure as years. Our largest predators are about the size of your... What do you call the small fuzzy creatures in your database? Cats? Han Bora blinked in surprise. Your biggest predators are the size of house cats. House cats that we've already made extinct. Through overhunting, added engineer Park Woo-jin with a grin. We couldn't leave anything alone that might potentially be dangerous. As repairs commenced on the peaceful dawn, The two species shared information that left both sides amazed and horrified. The Zephyrians spoke of the Galactic Alliance, a peaceful confederation of over 300 species that had evolved on gentle worlds under stable suns. Worlds where the weather was predictable, where natural disasters were rare, where the most dangerous wildlife had been tamed or relocated centuries ago. Your planet, Velinara explained to Captain Lee as they watched human engineers casually handle equipment that would require mechanized assistance for most species. Has weather patterns that would kill most galactic citizens within hours. Earthquakes, hurricanes, temperature extremes, massive predators, poisonous plants, dangerous bacteria. How did your species not only survive but thrive in such conditions? Lee thought about it for a moment, watching her crew work. Engineer Yoon Mi-kyung was single-handedly lifting a hull plate that weighed over 200 pounds, her movements casual and efficient. We adapted, she replied simply. When your world tries to kill you every day, you have two choices. Get stronger or die. We chose to get stronger. The cultural exchange continued for hours as both species learned about each other. The Zephyrians discovered that humans had evolved as persistence hunters on a world filled with massive predators, chasing prey for days across hostile terrain until their targets collapsed from exhaustion. They learned that humans could survive injuries that would be fatal to most species, that they could function on minimal sleep and food, and that their natural reaction to danger was to attack rather than flee. Most shocking of all was human medicine. Dr. Nam casually mentioned that he had once performed surgery on himself to remove an infected appendix while trapped in a collapsed mine shaft, and the Zephyrians nearly fainted from the concept. You cut into your own body? Velinara asked in horror. It was either that or die, Dr. Nam shrugged. Wasn't that big a deal. I've seen soldiers keep fighting with wounds that would have killed anything from your world. In return, the humans discovered they had stumbled upon first contact with a vast galactic civilization. The universe was full of intelligent life, dozens of species of artists, philosophers, healers, and explorers who had built a peaceful society among the stars. They just happened to be the only ones crazy enough to evolve on a world that most species would classify as a cosmic hazard. The Alliance has strict protocols about Deathworlds, Velinara explained. They're marked as forbidden zones. We assumed nothing intelligent could possibly evolve in such hostile conditions, well, Captain Lee said with a dry smile. I guess we're living proof that the universe has a sense of humor. As the peaceful Dawn S Hall repairs neared completion, both crews realized that this accidental meeting would change the galaxy forever. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or victims, but as the guardians that peaceful civilizations never knew they needed. The Galactic Alliance Council Chamber was a marvel of architecture that defied physics. Built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, the chamber floated in the void between three star systems, connected to the galaxy by a network of quantum tunnels that allowed instant travel from hundreds of worlds. The Great Assembly Hall could hold representatives from over 300 species, each section carefully climate-controlled for different atmospheric requirements. Captain Velinara stood at the central podium, his pale blue skin now baring the scars of his ordeal in the asteroid field. 3 weeks had passed since his rescue, and the Alliance medical facilities had done wonders for his crew. But nothing could erase the memory of those terrifying moments when death had seemed certain. Around him, the council chamber buzzed with translation devices working overtime. Representatives from dozens of species listened in stunned silence as he described the impossible beings who had saved his crew. The elegant Corvain healers with their floating meditation pods seemed especially disturbed, their normally serene faces troubled by concepts they could barely understand. They charged into an asteroid field that would have destroyed any of our vessels, Velinar reported, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. The gravitational shear forces alone should have liquefied every living thing aboard their ship, but they endured it like it was nothing more than rough weather. In the Thalon section, the ancient philosophers whispered among themselves, their crystalline forms chiming like wind chimes as they processed this information. The Thalon had spent millennia studying the nature of consciousness and survival, but they had never encountered anything like this. They pulled maneuvers that violated every law of physics we understand about biological limitations, Velanara continued. Their ship was built like a weapon rather than an exploration vessel. Every surface was armored, every system redundant, designed to survive conditions that would kill our best engineers just from looking at the blueprints. The aquatic cetacean delegates floated in their pressurized water tanks, their sonar communications, creating complex harmonic patterns that conveyed deep unease. In their peaceful ocean worlds, the concept of such brutal engineering was almost incomprehensible. Council Speaker Ithmara of the Corvani rose from her meditation pod. Forms shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that indicated careful consideration. The Corvani were the Alliance's primary peacekeepers and healers. Chosen for their natural empathy and conflict resolution abilities, honored Captain Velanara, she spoke, her voice like music played on crystal chimes. You describe a species. That sounds ... terrifying. Are you absolutely certain they pose no threat to the Alliance? Their capabilities suggest they could conquer entire star systems if they chose to do so. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Several species had already begun calculating their defensive capabilities against such formidable opponents. The gentle Florians, who communicated through color changes in their petal-like appendages, were flashing rapid patterns of fear and concern. Velanara straightened. His forearms spread in a gesture of absolute conviction. Honored Speaker, I stake my life, my crew's lives, and my species' honor on this statement. They pose no threat to anyone who means no harm. Yes, they could have taken our ship, our technology, our lives. They had us completely at their mercy. Instead, they shared their food, their medicine, and their knowledge. They asked for nothing in return, except the chance to help. He paused, remembering the moment when the human medical officer had worked tirelessly to save a Zephyrian crew member who had been injured in the rescue. The human had used his own blood for a transfusion when their medical supplies ran low, a concept so alien to most galactic species that it defied comprehension. They call their world Earth, Velanara continued. To them, it's simply home. But by our standards, it's a nightmare realm where everything evolved to kill everything else. Massive storms that could shatter our cities, earthquakes that split continents, predators the size of our shuttlecraft, diseases that would wipe out entire populations. And yet they don't just survive there, they thrive. The Alliance debated for days. Some species, particularly those from the Outer Rim who occasionally dealt with space pirates and raiders, saw the potential value in having such formidable allies. Others, especially the core world civilizations, who had lived in peace for millennia, feared the implications of contact with such physically powerful beings, the Mechanist Collective. Beings who had uploaded their consciousness into robotic bodies centuries ago were fascinated by human engineering. Their representative, a sleek chrome construct designated Units 7742, spent hours analyzing the data from the human ship's construction. Technology is crude by our standards, Unit 7742 reported, but incredibly robust. Where we build for efficiency and elegance, they build for survival. Every human tool is designed to function in conditions that would destroy our finest equipment. The debate raged for 72 standard hours. The Pacifist Alliance, led by the cloud-welling Aryans, argued for extreme caution. The Explorers Guild, represented by species from the frontier worlds, pushed for immediate contact. Trade Federation representatives calculated the economic implications of dealing with a species that could operate in environments no one else could survive. The decision came when the eldest member of the council spoke. Gathenel of the Thalen was over 800 years old, a living crystal formation that had witnessed the rise and fall of entire civilizations. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of centuries of wisdom. Fellow council members, his voice resonated through harmonic frequencies that touched the souls of every species present. I have lived long enough to see the galaxy change many times. I have watched peaceful species flourish and violent ones destroy themselves. But I have never encountered a species like these humans. He paused, his crystalline form pulsing with soft light. Perhaps the galaxy needs guardians who are not afraid of the dark places between stars. Perhaps we need allies who see danger and run toward it, not away. The universe is vast and full of mysteries we have not yet encountered. When we meet those mysteries, would we not want protectors who view the impossible as merely difficult? The vote was close, but the Alliance ultimately chose hope over fear. The message they composed was transmitted on the same frequency that had carried the original distress call, sent across the void to a small blue planet that most civilizations would have written off as uninhabitable. The message was simple. People of Earth, the galaxy is vast and sometimes dangerous. We would be honored to have guardians who are not afraid of either. The Galactic Alliance extends an invitation to join our confederation, not as subjects or conquerors, but as protectors and friends. On Earth, in the Soul Space Command Center, Communications Officer Kim Tae-ho received the transmission with trembling hands. The same man who had first heard the alien distress call was now listening to humanity's formal invitation to join a galactic civilization. Admiral Lee, he called across the command center, his voice cracking with emotion. You need to see this. Admiral Lee So-young, recently promoted after her successful first contact mission, read the message with quiet satisfaction. Around her, the command center buzzed with activity as the implications sank in. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. Looks like we found our place in the cosmos, she told her assembled staff. We're not just explorers or scientists or traders. We're the ones who answer the call when nobody else can. Let's make sure we're worthy of that trust. The response Earth sent back was equally simple. We accept. When someone calls for help, we'll be there. Above Earth's atmosphere, construction began on humanity's first interstellar diplomatic vessel. Unlike the brutal functionality of the Iron Mountain, this ship would be built for both survival and diplomacy. But it would still be recognizably human, tough enough to go anywhere and strong enough to protect anyone who needed protection. The stars no longer seemed empty or hostile. They were full of friends humanity had yet to meet, civilizations to protect, and dangers they would face together. The galaxy had found its guardians, and the guardians had found their purpose. In the vast cosmic dark between stars, new alliances were being forged that would change the course of galactic history. Humanity had taken its first steps toward becoming the protectors of a peaceful universe. And the universe would never be the same. The end.